רגע.
Welcome to another tzuzamen. Hi, Tzipi.
Hi, Tzili.
Hi, Yossi.
Tzuzamen, together. And we are here.
Ich bin a Frank over Yiddish und zusammen is biyachad, is togetherness. Yeah. It's like all together now. We used to say that in those days, the beginning of the 70s, the end of the 60s, when we were all hippies, and we all said, let's do it all together now.
Yes.
And we did it. We just,
yes, but you have to explain people what is מה אמרת?
hippie. What is hippie?
No, ich bin Frank. Mama, the Frank.
Ich bin a Frank.
Oh,
no,
Frank.
because not everybody knows.
Nobody knows.
The history of Yiddish starts all the way back in Iraq.
In Baghdad.
What, really?
In Baghdad, yes.
There
where it started.
Hold on. This is Yossi Alfi, and he was born in Baghdad.
He was Yossi Alfi, and
I was born in Basra.
In Basra?
I was born
okay.
Basra. Basra is the south end of Iraq. It's on the border of Persia, Abadan. And in those days, about 1,000 years ago, a bit more even, 1,200, 300 years ago, the language was called Yehudi. Yehudi in Arabic means Yiddish. Yiddish is Yudit, is Yehudit. And the wording of Yehudit and Yiddish is the same wording, except there it was going by the German language, was it Ish, like you say Ish, like Lachodish, like English, blah, 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 blah. There it was called Yehudi, and it was written in letters of Rashi, which is very old way of writing Hebrew. And from there, people learned to speak Hebrew mixed with the local language. In other words, when a Muslim would talk to you Arabic, it would be completely different to the Yehudi. And my mother, grandmother, etc., they all spoke Yehudi. They didn't speak Arabic. And in order to make contact,
dialect, yeah,
exactly. So it's like German and Yiddish. So there you are. Here we are. Let's start.
We already started, and it just
good.
Only the little bit, a little bit of this man's vast knowledge.
Yossi Alfi is a storyteller.
Unbelievable.
And he runs a festival for storytelling. So he knows so much about so much.
But he's more than that.
And his wife is British.
Oh.
And listen to his English.
That is because all the Iraqi Jews were all very Englesi. You know, Englesi means English, you know, we were called in good names like Victoria and Albert and George and Juliet and William and Flora and Nora, etc., etc. Even our dog was called Bobby because, you know, he was a Jewish dog.
But why?
Why? Because the British came into the area of Iraq 1921 and got rid of the Turks and the Ottomans.
Like in Israel, yeah.
Like in Israel,
Palestine,
exactly.
Yeah.
Here they got in 1917. To Iraq, they got in 1921. It took them a bit time, you know, to get there. And from the moment the British came in, they realized that the allies would be Jews. And it's a very funny thing because Jews were always allies of the conquerors of Iraq. It was Genghis Khan at the time.
Yeah.
You know, Genghis Khan, when he conquered Iraq, he killed masses and masses. The Tigris was red from the blood of the people that were killed in Iraq, but he never killed Jews.
Why?
I don't know. He made them into allies because he said that those people are praying to something that doesn't really exist. And it's more interesting than praying to someone that is hanging on a cross or people that are praying with all those funny languages, which he didn't like at all. And you know, the Genghis Khan's people at the time, they believe in the spirit of the wind. The wind is the spirit.
Okay.
And
so it's an essence, it's unknown. The Jews believed in something which is unknown.
not
it's
only
kind
unknown,
of scary to hurt people.
it doesn't really exist.
Describe it. You cannot describe it. You cannot touch it. You cannot do anything. Yeah.
Right.
En lo guf, en lo tzurat guf, means it doesn't have a body and it doesn't have a formation of a body, which means that really you can say that he doesn't exist. But people say that even when you say that he doesn't exist, he exists by the saying of he doesn't exist.
Right.
The Jews became allies with the British.
Right.
And from that moment in 1921, Solel Boneh in Israel in those days, it was Palestine in those days, got a contract. They got a contract to build the airport in Abadan. The airport in Abadan was on the Tigris river, but very near it. And the people that came to work were, you know, all kinds. But then Jews realized that there is some work, there is parnasa, there is, you know, making a living. And they joined the project. And the British didn't understand that those guys came in with ties and with jackets, and they were, you know, what they couldn't. So they made them into the managers of the project. And then the Solel Boneh people that came from Palestine, the Israelis in those days, before they became Israelis, they sent a message to the people here in Palestine saying, you know, we found Jews in Iraq. Now they were absolutely ignoramus, you know, because they're ignorant, because
they were there a long
Jews
time.
Jews in Iraq were there from the first temple, you know, and Yehoiachin, the king Yehoiachin, came from Jerusalem. He left Jerusalem. He had bad ties with the Kohens, with the Kohanim, with the priests, because they took over the power on the kingdom, and he just left them and went to Babylonia in those days.
Yeah.
And they created a new Israel. The kingdom of Israel was in Babylon. And this kingdom was without priests, without Kohanim. Without Kohanim, it's unbelievable, right? And they kept going 2,650 years, not moving. They weren't the wandering Jews, because there were no better place to be than Babylon in those days. And they were there all those years and created a nation of their own.
You know? Community, a very big, thriving community.
Is it true they had a different Talmud?
Yes, they did.
Different Talmud, right?
What do you mean different? The original Talmud, the original Talmud, the original Mishnah, the original rabbis, the original tutors were from Babylon. In fact, when they started the second temple here in Israel in those days, Ezra and Nehemiah, Ezra was the old Herzl in those days. And he had the same kind of idea of bringing over the poor people first to build the country, and then afterwards to bring the learned and the scholars, etc. But the learned and the scholars from Babylon didn't leave Babylon. They didn't want to come to Israel in those days, and they stayed in Babylon. Oh, here is the lovely boy.
Yes,
or girl.
We love him.
And they stayed in Babylon. And you know, it's a very strange thing. Babylon in those days was like America today. Exactly.
It's New York, yeah.
Like New York.
Yeah.
Baghdad was like New York. And Iraq was like America,
yeah.
The United States. And there were fights from this side to the other side.
From New York to Jerusalem.
Yeah. Exactly. And they called the people living in Haaretz, in the country, they call them the country people. In other words, the Am
The
Haaretz.
Levim. Yes.
Am Haaretz.
How do you explain it? When you
Am
say
Haaretz later became something to be mocked and laughed at.
Right.
yeah, but you see, but when this is not how I thought we'll start, because you are first and foremost, you know, storyteller, but everything you talk about is storytelling. But however, it's almost like I cannot hold it. How come with such a history, when the Iraqi Jews came to Israel, they were not welcome with all of the glorification that they deserve?
But not
Because
only
the
the
people
Iraqis.
that erected and started this country, with all due respect, were ignorant.
Right.
They didn't know anything about the Jews else, other places than the shtetl in East Europe. They
But do you
knew.
think but Yossi, do you think it's only ignorance, or also they felt vain and, you
Threatened.
know, alienated over the Jews from the Arab countries? I think it was a mixture.
The Jews from Iraq
Are the
helped.
pearl of the
The Jews from Iraq helped the congregation here in Palestine, and brought a lot of money and a lot of help. There is Bet Sefer Kaduri and
Yeah.
Kfar Yecheskel, and many places where really, you know, when they needed money, they asked the Babylonian Jews
Right.
to help. In fact, the Moroccan Jews were before here in Jerusalem, before the Zionists. They were the Shkunat Mugrabim.
Right.
Mugrabim are the Westerns, because Morocco is in the West, and they were called the Western village, or the Western neighborhood, and they fed the first Zionists that arrived at the end of the 19th century, 1882. They fed them, they treated them, they welcomed them, and they were, I mean, they were like the respected Jews, and the Zionists were the Michiganers.
But you know, even moreover, the first university was in Morocco, in Fez, and was created by a woman. And the Ashkenazi Jews from Europe always looked down at the Moroccans. And I don't know how they had the right, how they took the right upon themselves to look down at the Jews from the Arab countries, while they were not.
Ignorance.
Listen, I am really angry. This is like a deja vu. I'm really angry because we are from Square Dizengoff, me and Tzili. Everybody knows, we already tell it all the time. And I know about what you said about Iraq, because my husband was Ashkenazi from Russia, or was born for, but you know, he knows a lot, he reads a lot. So he was always talking about how Iraqi is an extremely enlightened and smart, and the culture amazing. But when I grew up, and you are right, nobody cared to tell us. Nobody ever told us that the Iraqi are what you described. And I feel deja vu, because back then they made it delegitimizing, you know, the culture of the Mizrahi, or Iraqi and Moroccan, right? And today we live in a society when so many other, even institutions are delegitimized. You know, like the police was by a former prime minister, you know, they wanted to wipe up the court and the police. And I just feel deja vu that there are people above who can really change prevent us from the right knowledge, from the truth.
I want to explain that.
Really
it comes from losing identity. The people, the first Zionists that came over, wanted to give up the identity of the wandering Jew, the Jew that is being disrespected, etc., the Jew that is a moneylender, blah, 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 okay? And they came to Israel to be the new Jew. And the new Jew will be an agricultural Jew. It will be a person that will be working on the land and not on money making, etc., etc. and they really have left the rabbinical court, they left the Jewish identity and created a new Jewish identity. But they did it because they wanted to do it. When they saw other people coming over, like the Romanians, like the Yekis, like, you know, the people that came from Germany. I mean, the people that came from Germany, they were scholars, they were learned, they were, by the way, I'm in Israel, I've got the title of Yeke Leshem Kavod, which means that I'm a Yeke, an honorary Yeke. Okay, it's true, and it's signed, you know. Anyway,
but how did you feel when you
they did. I mean, the Yekes had an identity.
Yes.
And they were proud of it.
Yes.
They didn't like it. The Iraqis were with identity, and they didn't like it. And the Yemens came with identity, and they didn't like it. Anyone that had any identity was supposed to be galuti, or, you know, the old kind of Jew, and they wanted to destroy it. And that was the most dreadful thing to do, because we've lost identity. And now I lost my identity because the history was told by someone else that didn't want to know about my history. And then I grew up as a child without knowing who I am.
Here in Israel.
How old were you when you came?
I came, I left Iraq 3 years old, and I arrived 4 years old, because the way from Iraq to New Israel, 1949, was just like the trip that the Ethiopian Jews took, you know, with a lot of walking, with a lot of walking, 1,000 kilometers.
What do you mean?
From,
Only not about Ethiopia, not about Iraqi, that they walk to Israel?
Of course.
Yemenite, but not Iraqi.
We didn't walk. No. By the way, Fuad Ben Eliezer walked when he was 12 years old, all the way from Basra to Israel.
Yeah.
All the way,
walking.
He came on some donkeys on the way, on some whatever. I was carried from Abadan in Persia to Tehran, which is 1,000 kilometers. And from Tehran, we got planes that came and took us all the way to Lida Airport. In those days, it was called Lida Airport. It wasn't called Sde Taufa Lod or Namal Taufa Ben Gurion. It was called Lida Airport. And we arrived there, and in order to destroy completely the identity, people were forced to change their names.
Yeah.
What is your name? Victoria. Now you are Yehudit. What is your name?
Was to everybody, also to the European, also to all of
Yeah. To change the names. Change the names.
How
Destroy.
did you feel being a kid from Iraq? How did you feel as a kid?
I don't know. I had a very strange childhood, because I was sent as a refugee from Iraq with my grandmother. My mother and my father stayed in Basra for another 2 years.
Wow.
And I didn't see them for 2 years, and we arrived over here to transition camps, which really were refugee camps, tents, little tents, bigger tents, huts, whatever, you know. And there was no food. There was no way to live. And with all that, you know, one thing that has to be studied, really, Israel is in a fantastic state today, very developed, and it all developed from refugee camps. There is no other country in the world that started from refugee camps and became a mighty state.
But you know, Yossi, I'm listening to your journeys, and I'm thinking about the journey that Guri made in the United States. Guri is Yossi's son.
And he's very famous stand-up and
he's
actor
and
a lot
comedian.
Of other things.
Yeah, very talented guy. And he just made
He's a very good man.
About Jews in America.
Yeah, about the different kind of Jews in America, which was very interesting, very unusual. He really got to all kind of versions that not many people know. And I'm thinking about the short time that the Jewish journey made, and the question that people are asking, and the non-stop moving forward, sides, backwards, whatever you name it, and looking for ways to describe or to define their Judaism. And it's like everybody's carrying something from somewhere, trying to bring it to some place to create something, and there's non-stop moving. And at the time that in Israel we were, well, the Israel at that time, at the beginning, was trying to define something like a community with one language, one face, one way, and it doesn't work. And it doesn't work. And the more you think about how Israel wants to define itself, at the same time, you have so many other groups and so many other ways, and not everything even is affiliated with Israel. It's because
the thing is that Jews were always made into groups, little communities, little, a community here, and it's from the beginning. It started with tribes, the 12 tribes. And then afterwards, when they became a proper nation, they became, all kinds of, not religions, but every Jew saw himself as a temple, his own temple. He
carried the temple with them,
Different temple, different synagogue.
Sometimes I think that part of our tragedy is that the Jews were always moving around, and always were trained to take it with them, because they either had to run or to recreate or to move forward. And
the Iraqi Jews never moved.
But
they never
then
moved.
We came to Israel and we got stuck, and we cannot take it. We cannot take it. Jews cannot sit still.
There is a little story. There is a little story about this guy that he fell off a ship, and he swam. And he got to an island. So the first thing he did was building 2 synagogues. One he's going to pray in, and the other one his foot wouldn't tread in it.
Yes.
That's the way.
Yeah. Tell me, we didn't introduce you properly, because
Yalla.
one of the most
that I'm a good guy. Come on.
We know, and but
I know Tzili since she was
so many years ago.
no.
Yeah.
But but for me, I mean, unfortunately, I never met enough people who can tell a story like you. It's almost like it used to be, I guess, we talk about tzuzamen. It's a need to tell stories and to listen to story, right? It's a human need. I think so, right?
First of all, the Torah starts from the Sefer Bereshit, which is it's in English, it's called Genesis.
Right.
Genesis, okay? I'll have to teach you a little bit of Judaism, okay?
Right.
I'm not going to go into your synagogue, Anyway, and Genesis is a book which is an unbelievable storytelling book.
Right.
The creation of the world, the creation of Gan Eden, paradise, and Adam and Eve, and Cain and Abel, and Noah's Ark, and Joseph and his brothers, and Jacob and his sons. It's all full of stories. Not one order to obey something at all. And mitzvot, no mitzvahs. Why? Because they knew that you have to create a story in order to make people listen. Because the beginning of culture is listening. And storytelling became something that is mekudash, sacred. It became sacred. And the first order in the Bible is you have to tell stories. V'higadeta lebincha. You must tell stories. It's not,
Wow.
it's
I
not
never
an
thought about
option.
it. This is a meaning. Wow.
It's not an option. It's a must. You have to tell stories. Otherwise, you don't have any reason to live.
That's the whole
And
thing
the,
from
and the
generation
fact
to
that you live, and the fact that you live now is because of other people's stories.
Yeah.
And we're going back to the beginning of our conversation. People didn't listen to each other where they came from. People thought that where they came from is the best place. But we Iraqis were in one place for 2,600 years and more without pogroms. No one wanted to kill us. No one wanted to abuse us. We were just, you know, the kings of the country there.
So what happened that you came to Israel? Why to come to Israel?
Zionism, the Zionism. In 1941, there was the first big pogrom in Baghdad, which was called the Farhud, 1941, and it was like the greatest warning, because Jews started moving to Palestine. My family started. I have a family that came here at the end of the 20s, beginning of the 30s, etc. And people started understanding that those Zionists are going to conquer the Middle East. And somehow in 1941, the prime minister of Iraq had a treaty with Hitler, and he became a Nazi. This was a Nazi government, a proper Nazi government, you know, with the saluting, with the, you know, and now joining the Germans against the British. Now, the Brits were our allies, as you know, and as we are the allies of the Brits, we are against this government. We are the enemy of this government. And this pogrom, a lot of people were killed, not millions, about 180, 160, 170 people, and a lot were injured. And this was an enormous warning. And the head of the Mossad in those days,
זה לא היה ישראל. לא.
לא, no.
Never mind.
Will come to me in a minute. The head of the Mossad came to Iraq and started the Jewish Zionist underground. The underground in Iraq started in 1941-42 with the people from, his name was Shiloach. The name Shiloach was the first head of the Mossad, and the Jewish underground became quite strong. My father was in the underground. My brother is much older than I am. He was much older than I am. We have about 18 or 20 years
apart,
difference in age. And the Jewish underground started ruling the Jewish street. And in 1950, in 1946, the people started immigrating to Israel with the underground movement until 1949. And in 1950, Shlomo Hillel, which was the head of the Mossad Aliyah Bet, came to talk to the prime minister of Iraq in order to give him, he was the advisor, how to get rid of the Jewish underground. And he told him, just throw them out of Iraq. Just throw them out of Iraq. He said, we can't do that. It's against the law. He said, well, change the law. And they changed the law in 1950 and made a new law that any Jews want to leave Iraq, not like I did. I left Iraq, you know, with the underground. The others came in by law. And what was the law? You have to leave everything in Iraq. You're allowed to take just one suitcase, 20 kilos, no more, and the clothes on yourself, and that's it. And with that, you can leave Iraq. No house, no money, no identity, no passport, out.
Wow.
Now,
and they were very Wow.
He thought that how many crazy people would want to leave Iraq? Maybe 2,000. 105,000 people
Gee.
that were left in Iraq after all the infiltrating Jews that left Iraq were in the street of the main synagogue in Baghdad. They slept in the street all those nights, waiting in the queue to give back the Iraqi passport and get a little piece of paper with a stamp saying one-way ticket out. That's it. And if you want to see Herzl today, there is no Ashkenazi Herzl. They're all Iraqis. If you want to see Tikva or Carmela or Balfour or Weizmann, there won't be Ashkenazi Jews. There will be only Iraqi Jews. They stamped the Zionism into their skin. It was a craze.
Where did you get your stories? Where do you get your stories? Like you tell us now?
I'm a sponge.
You go all the way, you go everywhere, you tell, so you're like a sponge.
I'm a
What does it
sponge.
take? What does it take? What kind of a human being you are who can be like that? What kind of characteristics?
Listen, I know one thing, that I don't only tell stories, I write stories.
And we didn't tell,
So
he's a writer, he's a poet,
He's a
he's a writer, he's a poet, he's
Camera,
a director.
those are my books here.
Wow.
You see it? Yeah, there, those are my books.
I wanted to ask
But
you.
Yossi, everything that you do is variations of storytelling, whether you tell it by heart or you bring people together to tell them, or you direct or you write, it's all storytelling.
Yeah, there is something that you can
That's
detect.
true.
Can you or somebody else detected the main through line of your books? I mean, what is the main thread? There is a main thread in your writing?
Creating my own identity. All my life, I lived with no identity. The identity that I have today, which I live in peace with, mostly because of my great wife, because she accepted me as I am, was made.
But you
made
never
my
took
identity.
upon yourself the Israeli identity, because
I'm Israeli. I'm different. I'm an Israeli. I'm an
you
Israeli
grew up
because I'm a
here.
different. What?
Because you grew up here, you went to school here in Israel.
Not only
Yeah,
that,
totally.
because I've made people understand that if I'm an Israeli, they're Israelis too. And in 1970, I started the Israeli Community Theater, which I'm
Yes.
regarded as the father of community theater, Avia Teatron Akilati.
Yeah.
I did it because I knew that I have to give people the
To channel the way,
the abilities and the tools to create your own self and your own identity. If you don't, you're dead. You're dead.
right.
If you don't have identity, you live like a snail without a house on it. Without no.
Yeah, the core of your being. Yes. Yes. But you know, I'm looking at you and what you are doing. And I don't know how can you persist, like really like Sisyphus, because for example, you go and you build, I mean, I know about it, you know, community theaters, right? And you're really trying to build communities. And then, I don't know when, you started to fight that our kids will read books, which you look at the kids today, forget about books. There is Twitter and there is Instagram and there is all.
They tell the stories their way.
Yeah, but what?
No, I must tell you that there is it's a wrong way of thinking. I must say, look, once people wrote on the walls of the
Caves.
Afterwards, they wrote on rocks.
Right.
And after that, they wrote on materials that are available and they can keep, like rice paper or papyrus,
Yeah.
or skin of an animal or whatever. Later, when the Europeans found a way of doing the paper from wood,
revolution.
from
Yes.
wood, and creating
Print.
the print, that was an enormous revolution. But today, you don't need all those things. We have the ability to create words and vision like this, you know? That's it. We don't need anymore. And reading from the iPhone or reading from the computer is reading. The kids today are reading much more than we
You are a
were.
hopeless optimist.
No,
Because
Tzipi, you're wrong.
wait a minute. Look, the kids today, I'm speaking about kids today, when they wrote in the cave and they wrote, I think they tried to really express themselves deeply. And now I have the feeling that most of the kids are trying to impress.
Well, first of all, it's a way of communication.
Yes.
First of all, I must tell you something. You're not allowed to leave your childhood. Anyone that leaves his childhood is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say those kids are, that means that you are not a kid. I'm a kid. I didn't pass 14 because I couldn't
She's
pass
younger.
14.
Me too.
She's
No,
younger.
I feel the same. But
I couldn't pass 14 because I didn't have anyone to tell me how to live as a grown-up. That's why I stayed as a child. And you know what? It's suffering, but it gives you a lot of strength. Childhood is something that has to live with you until you're dead.
Absolutely. But I think that, look, I hear all these years people that are saying, oh, the kids today, it's wrong, because technology changes, techniques change. The idea is there all the time because the kids communicate
not
with
enough to
whatever they
communicate.
have. No, but
We don't teach them to be curious. I mean, if you talk to him, he doesn't, all his knowledge came out of curiosity.
But some people are curious and some people are not.
But we have
No. Everyone is
on
curious.
Different levels.
In their own way.
That's right.
In their own way.
Yeah.
Some curiosity doesn't mean anything to you. But if he looks at the cockroach and sits there to look at the cockroach all evening, you know what? You would tread on the cockroach maybe, or you would scream, ah, juke, you know? But he looks at it as something fantastic.
Right.
Doesn't he have the cockroach watcher? Doesn't he have curiosity?
You know, I personally think that any version of expressing is okay. Every version of using knowledge or collecting knowledge or learning about things and communicate through this is good with me. And I'm just trying to understand what the younger generation is doing so I won't be left behind. So I need to join them, not to drag them backwards to me, just join them, you know, and carry my stuff with me because these are my tools. But I think
may I say something about that, Tzili? I think the best thing that could happen to us is that our kids are better than us, and that the grandkids are even better than their parents. And there is a very, very short poem that I wrote once saying, כשהייתי צעיר, חשבתי, I'll translate it in a minute. כשהייתי צעיר, חשבתי שהורים הם סתם מטומטמים. עכשיו כשאני סבא, אני בטוח.
Why?
This is the point. When I was young, I thought that parents are just stupid. Now that I'm a grandpa, I'm sure about it.
I don't know.
You should see how my boys dismiss me when I ask them what? They said, and they just keep going.
So you think the world is better today than it used to be?
The world is never better or worse. The world
It is what
goes
it is.
on. We don't, I mean, maybe it should be like that. Maybe it should be now the destruction of this planet that we're on. Maybe we were sent to destroy this planet. Maybe we are the virus that was sent to this planet in order to destroy it. We don't know. It happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, you
Right.
know, and they didn't succeed to destroy the
frightening.
planet. And we are the Sodom and Gomorrah take two.
I don't think that the world is better or worse. There are good people. There are people who are less good. There are great people that do great things, and many people don't. The world is there, you know. It's like it's a place that we make it better or worse.
What you're trying to
Okay.
do when you tell stories, you go around everywhere, you get people, they tell their stories, you tell your story. Why?
I need to be listened to. It's a need. When I was a kid, one of 10, you know, in order to get some attention, you really have to start some drama going on. Otherwise, you know, be good, be like your brothers. Don't jump, don't start, don't do that, don't do da. And then, you know, my father used to say, it's another poem that I wrote that my father says all the time, can't you just go and come back without drama, without catastrophe, without something opens or closes or closes or open or closes or doesn't close, just be quiet. And I couldn't, because, you know, I was like bubbling all the time, and I needed people to listen to me.
Yeah, but you know, like she said, there are good people, there are bad people. There is something in your voice, the voice that you would like to send. It's not just to get an attention. It always feels there is more to it, not just the voice. You know, let hear me. There is almost like I don't know, kind of shlichut, a mission, or am I wrong?
My mission was at the beginning to make, first of all, the people that like me understand that they've got nothing to be ashamed of. They've got nothing to be ashamed of. They're here because things happened, and they have to know about themselves. And I started teaching, and I started doing theater.
And never be guilty about it. And never
no,
feel
he was
bad about
I told you, I feel, because I know that he was a teacher, he was a writer, he was a poet, he goes around, he built up communities, he goes to kids, I mean, this man doesn't, do you sleep?
I always feel, I think of you
I hardly sleep.
You know, I think of you as a cook, because every time when I listen to all the festivals and the gatherings, he mixes all the colors, all the tastes, all the cultures, and he's like cooking a whole big community with many dialects of culture under one roof, and it's just beautiful.
What about your kids, your grandchildren? How, I mean, what is the developing of those generation who all these years grew up in Israel? Like they are sons or grandchildren of Iraqi. How much they carry? No. I just now stick to the Iraqi. No, now I'm sticking to the Iraqi. Not about his grandchildren. In general, do you see any progress, or what is the journey of anybody that his origin is from Iraq? His grandparents, great-grandparents, doesn't matter. How is it today?
The Iraqi congregation in Israel mixed itself a lot. A lot of Iraqis married out. There is hardly, I mean, most of the Iraqis are married out. There are hardly any Iraqis married to Iraqis. It's very strange. But look, I've got 3 kids that are far more clever than I am, far more knowledgeable than I am, far more educated than I am, far more able than I am. And I was ashamed to be more able than my father. I wasn't allowed. Things were, you know, you couldn't be taller than your father or a bit more clever than your father. That was unknown. My grandchildren, that are now, there are 10 grandchildren. my father had 10 kids without any babysitters. At least I have 2 babysitters on every kid, you know,
Yeah.
their parents.
Yeah.
So it's, they are even more clever than their parents. You see it. I mean, you just see it because they grew up in a way that they were allowed. They were allowed to grow. I've got 10 grandchildren from 12 different countries,
Oh,
from Iraq, from Persia, from Syria, from Libya, from Austria, from Australia, from Germany, shall I carry on? And 12 countries. And you look at them, and one looked like Grisha from, you know, with blue eyes and blonde hair. The other one looks with the blue eyes and black hair. This one looks a bit darker than the one with the lighter. And it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
We are a proper community in a little family.
and so they all have one identity. They don't carry.
No,
Like
they
it's
have
not
they
that
have different they have different identities, even
it's
though
okay.
they're all Israelis. You
Yes.
see, when I grew up knowing that being an Israeli, you have to look like this, not like that. You have to speak like this, not like that. You have to approach things like this and not like that. I grew up in a generation where they wanted to send me to be a metal worker. Why?
Of course.
Because that's the way.
Yeah.
You are an Eastern Jew. You're a metal worker, and I went to a school of metalwork, Amal, in Israel, and I just looked at this machine. I didn't know what to do with it. Thank God there was a drama group in the school that made me come to school, because I went only to the drama group. That's it. And after the drama school, slowly I ran away from the whole thing and found the art school, Renanim. And there were people that I owe them my life. They saved me. You know, they taught me things that I still am learning from them.
I have kids.
And how your family took it?
My father died, and it was like freedom. I could go anywhere I wanted. I became my own father. From being 15, 16, from the age of 15, I became my own father. That's why I'm saying that I'm only 14. I stayed 14 all my life, because
Right.
I had a father and I created another image, the image of my father, even though my father was, look.
I'm lucky. My father died when I was 7. You know?
Look,
Wow.
this is my father. This is my father wearing an Indian hat, okay? Because the Indians came with the British in 1921. They brought Indians, soldiers, and it became a fashion. They've left the tarbush, which was Turkish. They've left all of that, and
They
wore.
adopted the Indian.
Look at
Yeah.
his eyes.
Yeah.
This is Sidara. This is Sidara.
And
Now,
look at his eyes.
for me, this man was the most enormous man in the world. I was so frightened to just utter a word near him. Okay? And now I'm 76 years old. I'm 25 years older than him, and I still look at him and petrified.
But you still keep his picture in your room.
Of course.
Because
you know, beware. That's what he's saying.
But
Beware.
Yossi, take us to your, let's say, Passover table. Your kid, your grandkids, how do you run it? By what? How do you give them the message? How do you pass it on?
Last year, Sue and I were on our own, and we made an enormous table,
right,
with all the deeds and all that. And we did the Zoom. We just started the Zoom in last Passover. I learned how to use Zoom. And we Zoomed each other, and we created some kind of a network between us. But usually the Seder night is done in an Iraqi way. And we do the whole thing. And you see, this is another thing of storytelling. The Haggadah means the story.
To tell.
It's not a legend. It's
Again.
to tell. You have to tell the telling of the story, okay? And the telling of the story has to be told in languages that you can understand. That's why it's told in Hebrew, in Aramaic, in Yiddish, in English, and in Iraqi Jew. And if you say, "Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol halelot," blah, 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 which is, it's not Hebrew, this is Aramaic, okay? And we say it in Arabic as well, and we sing it in Arabic. هذا خبز المسكين الذي يأكل أبهاتنا في بلد مصر كل جوعان يجي وياكل كل معتاز يجي ويفسح هالسنة نحن هون سنة الجاية في بلد إسرائيل هالسنة نحن هون عبيد etc etc.
So all your grandkids know that. They know how to carry
They can
this.
sing it?
My kids sing it. My grandkids are listening. I can feel it. That one of them is already now he's 17, and he started to sing it. The other girls that are 20 and 19, they show me that they know, but they don't really know.
Okay.
They carry on. They don't need to get stuck. They have to go on.
But you know, it's interesting because you somehow it gets loose, and then when they have their kids, the tune that stick to them, it's what you taught them. And when you bring the kids for the later generation, everybody find their own roots, and it comes out, and it's really nice. It's really beautiful, and it repeats itself.
I did everything that I could do not to educate my kids. I did everything that I could do not to tell them what to think or what to do. I was just there.
Wow.
I was just there.
No,
Look,
a gift.
I never learned how to swim. Never. Someone just pushed me into the water and I almost drowned. And then I realized that I could, you know.
So you're not an helicopter father. You were not.
Yeah, but,
You're not a helicopter father controlling every move of your kids.
no way. Not, I mean, I'm married to a wonderful woman, which
But she's not
really,
Polish. If she was Polish, I don't know what will happen to you. She was a Polish
Marry
Jew.
her.
You know, that I don't know what would
I
be
was
your
lucky.
fate.
I was lucky throughout my life. I had a fantastic life because I knew hell and I knew heaven until I was 26-year-old, and I came back from London with all with all the knowledge that I got from London, at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts.
Oh.
And I arrived back in Israel, and I started thinking, how am I going to start new theater, and how am I going to do this and that? And then I met Sue, which was fantastic.
After you came from London or before?
Yeah, after I
came
came, and meeting her brought me into heaven. And thank God that it does have. I don't believe in God, but I'm saying it for the saying way. Thank God, okay, whatever it is.
As long as you have somebody to thank for.
Yeah.
Well, listen, but can you reach the young people to listen to your stories?
Of course. I did a project with the Bank Hapoalim in Israel for 15 years. And we did about 2,000 shows, something like that, almost 2,000 shows, which none of them was the same. Each show was different because doing the same show is not the right thing, because now I'm talking to you is different than all those Zoom talks that I talk to others, because you're different. You're different.
Yes.
If you're different, I have to be different as well. I have to bring you something else. And the idea was bringing kids back to books, back to reading.
Yeah.
And I've made them understand that what they're doing by not reading books, by reading from the computer and reading from the iPhone, will bring them back to books. because this feeling with the paper, with this, you know,
Well, yeah.
it's a different feeling. It's intimate, and I must say that a lot of kids, after each one of those shows that I did to them, and I was always telling them about how I didn't read books at the beginning, and then I was writing the books, you know.
You know, I
Yossi.
hear more and more people saying, like playwrights or screenwriters or even writers, who in the last 20, I don't know when, years, they use the computer to write. Now they're going to handwriting back. It's almost,
No,
a lot of people are going back to
I'm the
handwriting.
first Israeli writer that started working with a computer.
Oh.
And at the time I was active in the Writers Union in Tel Aviv, and I told them that I bought a computer. You know, you put a disk in, a floppy disk, and you get it out, and you put another floppy disk, and I have a thing that called Einstein, another one called word mill, and and this little thing, and I write, and they said to me, what? They said to me, are you crazy? You're going to write books on a computer? What are you, a clerk? I said, why can't I write on a computer? No one can read my handwriting anyway because it's so terrible. But it's so fantastic, you know, I can write much faster. And they said, oh God, Alfi, you became a clerk, you're working on a computer. I said, you know what? What is the best thing in the computer? There is one there. There's a note there, a little thing that says on it, delete.
Right.
And the writers that don't have this delete don't have the ability to write. We used to delete with scissors, masking tape, and with Tipex, you know.
Right.
And now we do ting, and it's all gone.
Right. Yossi, what are you rehearsing on now?
I'm now working on the festival. It's in a month's time, and my head is all
stories.
No, it's. I must say, I'm not very happy these days. I'm very, very preoccupied with the problems that we've got to go through, because last festival we had to do it without any audience, and we just brought it to the television and radio. On stage without any audience, and I hope it's not going to happen to us this year, because it will kill me.
Nothing bounce back. You sit there on the stage and nothing comes bounce back to you. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, really.
You can't work without audience. You can't.
When is the festival?
From the 18th of September to the 28th of September, which is now. It's coming now. Yeah.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
Well,
and I travel throughout the world and tell stories other places. And I would love to come to, where do you live now?
New York.
That's it, huh? You live in New York as well?
Tzipi lives half and half.
I live here and 6 months in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I live here.
Yes.
Doesn't matter where I am, I'm here.
We'll be
It's
very
not you're not a wandering Jew, you're the bouncing Jew.
Yes. Yes.
Back and forth, but it will be nice if you come and tell stories in New York.
Please invite me.
Absolutely.
You know, it just crossed my mind, actually, because I teach screenwriting at NYU, and I think that they can actually learn from you about storytelling.
Yeah, I give lectures.
This is really, you know, it's what we teach. We call it storytelling. You have to think about what I'm saying. It's almost like you can bring to the students there, you know,
the soul
in the dramatic writing program and in the undergraduate film and television at NYU, you can bring another level of understanding about what is truly a storytelling.
Right.
You know?
Everything that one does.
What?
And everything that one does, but everything is a story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Every second, every move, every breath that you take in or inhale.
Yeah, but you have to believe that the way you tell is your voice is different. than her voice. Or
Because
mine.
it's my voice, but your
Yes.
voice is different because it's your voice.
Yeah, but we have to trust our own voice, and it seems that
Yeah,
you
but
trust your voice.
I'll bring you back to the rabbi from Kotsk. The rabbi from Kotsk, Menachem Mendel.
Mhm.
The poor man was very depressed. And he wouldn't eat, he wouldn't want to do anything, and that's it. He didn't want to know anyone. He closed the door and he didn't allow anyone to see him anymore. And they would put food near his door to see that he's alive, you know. And once they came to him, this Hasidim said to him, Rabbi, why are you so sad? You know, you are the greatest man on earth now. Since Moshe Rabbeinu, you are the best Jew ever. And he says to me, I don't know if I'm Moshe Rabbeinu or not Moshe Rabbeinu. I just am afraid that one day I'm going to go up to heaven. And God will look at me and say, and when was it that you were yourself? When was it that you were Menachem Mendel? When was it that you can say that I was me? When? And that is scary. And then he says, Imani ani, if I am me and you are you, then you are you and me is me. But if I am me because you are you and you are you because I am me, then I'm not me and you're not you. And that is a fantastic thing.
Did you tell
storytelling.
it to your grandchildren?
I'm sorry?
Did you tell it to your grandchildren?
Of course, they know it by heart.
I'm going to tell it tomorrow.
Good.
I'm kidding. I'm taking all of them.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Huh? That was
Thank you very
wonderful.
much.
What a great note to finish.
Yossi, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
wonderful.
Listen, we have to meet, for God's sake.
Yes, and thank everybody
And
for
thank
coming
everybody.
to tzuzamen, which is what he's doing all the time.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll see you next
now he's
week.
frozen.
Bye.
Bye. Bye bye. He's frozen at the last moment. נו, מה קורה?
הכל, אוי.
אוי, 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 אוי.